Welcome everyone to History Gone Wilder, part of Half History Will Travel. I am your host, the Wilder Historian, and over the last 2 weeks, I have covered the first and second days at Gettysburg with Longstreet, and now we come to the third day, one of the most contentious moments in Longstreet's military career, and one he would fight to keep from happening. Robert E. Lee rode to the Confederate right to find Longstreet at sunrise. When he found Longstreet, the First Corps commander explained to him that, "General, I have had my scouts out all night, and I find that you still have an excellent opportunity to move around to the right of Meade's army and maneuver him into attacking us." After listening to Longstreet explain, Lee waved off such a maneuver and pointed towards Cemetery Ridge and said he would attack that position with the 3 divisions of the First Corps. Longstreet responded, "General, I have been a soldier all my life. I have been with soldiers engaged in fights by couples, by squads, companies, regiments, divisions, and armies, and should know, as well as anyone, what soldiers can do. It is my opinion that no 15,000 men ever arranged for battle can take that position." The 2 men discussed it a little further, but Longstreet realized that Lee would not budge on his decision. Lee then jabbed his fist towards Cemetery Ridge and declared, "The enemy is there, and I am going to strike him." The 2 men then rode off close to the Emmitsburg Road and observed the Federal position. Soon they were joined by A.P. Hill and Henry Heath. Longstreet explained that Hood and McLaws' divisions were too badly hurt from the previous day to be used in a main assault on this day, and it was decided that Pickett's fresh division and brigades from Hill's corps would be used to spearhead and support the attack. A large artillery bombardment would take place before the infantry attack to soften up the Federal position and neutralize the Federal artillery. Preparations began to form up the infantry for their assault on Cemetery Ridge. Pickett's division would be in 2 lines, 2 brigades in front and 1 in back. The brigades from Hill's corps on Pickett's left were still suffering from their devastating fight on the first day, and Longstreet would say that sending them into battle on the third day was a grievous error. Nevertheless, Lee assigned Longstreet to the role of commander of the attack, even over the troops of A.P. Hill. Hill even said in his report that he ordered his brigades to report to Longstreet, but Longstreet did not position those troops. They were left to themselves, it seems. Hill, presumably not wanting to step on Longstreet's toes when that general was given command of the attack, did not position them either. All of the preparations were completed between 11 a.m. and noon. At 11:45 a.m., Longstreet sent a message to Porter Alexander, the commander of his artillery, saying, "If the artillery fire does not have the effort to drive off the enemy or greatly demoralize him, so as to make our effort pretty certain, I would prefer that you should not advise General Pickett to make the charge. I shall rely a great deal upon your judgment to determine the matter, and shall expect you to let General Pickett know when the moment offers." Longstreet was evidently attempting to shift responsibility to Alexander. The artilleryman became concerned over the note and asked Brigadier General Ambrose Wright, who was meeting with him when the note arrived, about it. Then Alexander wrote back to Longstreet, "General, I will only be able to judge the effect of our fire on the enemy by his return fire, as his infantry is but little exposed to view, and the smoke will obscure the whole field. If, as I infer from your note, there is any alternative to this attack, it would be carefully considered before opening our fire, for it will take all the artillery ammunition we have left to test this one thoroughly, and if the result is unfavorable, we will have none left for another effort, and even if this is entirely successful, it can only be so at a very bloody cost." At 12:15, Longstreet responded, "The intention is to advance the infantry. If the artillery has the desired effect of driving the enemy off, or having other effects such as to warrant us in making the attack." Alexander rode to Pickett to confer with the Virginian, and finding Pickett in good spirits about the attack, he wrote back to Longstreet, "When our artillery fire is at its best, I will advise General Pickett to advance." At around 1 p.m., over 150 cannons opened up on the Union position on Cemetery Ridge. Amid the hail of iron and explosions, the Confederate troops organized for the attack waited anxiously. Brigadier General James Kemper of Pickett's division remembered, "While this was going on, Longstreet rode slowly and alone immediately in front of our entire line. He sat his large charger with a magnificent grace and composure I never before beheld. His bearing was to me the grandest moral spectacle of the war. I expected to see him fall every instant. Still he moved on, slowly and majestically, with an inspiriting confidence, composure, self-possession, and repressed power in every movement and look that fascinated me." As Longstreet approached, Kemper walked toward him and said, "General, this is a terrible place." "What, is your command suffering?" asked Longstreet. "Yes, a man is cut to pieces here every second while we are talking. Sometimes a dozen are killed at one shot." Longstreet responded, "Is it possible? Can't you find any safer position for your men?" "No, we are exactly behind the line of this crest, the very safest place about here." "I am greatly distressed at this," Longstreet replied. "Greatly distressed at this, but let us hold our ground a while longer. We are hurting the enemy badly, and will charge them presently." Alexander observed during the cannonade that the Union guns were not stopping or becoming neutralized like he had hoped. Then he thought he saw a number of guns being dragged away. He wrote a quick note to Pickett. "The 18 guns have been driven off. For God's sake, come on quick, or we cannot support you. Ammunition nearly out." The courier carrying that message found Pickett and Longstreet together. The corps commander looked grim as Pickett read the message. Pickett asked, "General, shall I advance?" Longstreet could not speak. He turned his face away and nodded. Pickett saluted, mounted his horse, and said, "I shall lead my division forward, sir." Longstreet then rode to Alexander and inquired about the artillery. Alexander stated to Longstreet that his ammunition chests were empty, and he would have trouble supporting the infantry. Longstreet wanted to halt Pickett's division until the ammunition could be replenished, but Alexander explained it would take over an hour to get all of that accomplished, and the Union forces would only fortify their position more in that time. Longstreet told Alexander, "I don't want to make this attack. I believe it will fail. I do not see how it can succeed. I would not make it even now, but that General Lee has ordered it and expects it." Pickett's men began their march, and Longstreet sat on a rail fence, watching his veteran troops march into the jaws of death. Longstreet sent staffers to urge the support on Pickett's right and left forward. In the late stages of the attack, the British soldier Arthur Fremantle found Longstreet, saying he wouldn't have missed this for anything. Longstreet responded, "The devil you wouldn't. I would have liked to have missed it very much. We've attacked and been repulsed. Look there." The divisions and brigades that took part in the assault began streaming back to Seminary Ridge after being defeated. Longstreet and Lee rode along the lines and encouraged the men and attempted to raise their spirits. The two generals conferred with one another and decided to order a retreat. By the middle of the month, the Army of Northern Virginia was back in Virginia.